The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Everything Sequel podcast. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is a Pink Panther edition. Today, we're talking Curse of the Pink Panther. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man mistaking me for a hooker, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, Tom.
We caught him just in time. He could have choked on that goldfish. I thought I'd start with one of the more successful lines of dialogue.
One of the more successful jokes, because there's not a lot.
Yeah. No, and I guess it's no surprise that it's not said by Ted Wass.
Yes.
Just some day player.
Just some random.
This random day player manages to be funnier than Ted Wass is in the entire rest of the movie. Yeah, but a laugh is a laugh. Right,
it is indeed.
And I had to
take them
cling
when you can get them.
I know I had to cling to all the scraps, but that was a good one. It reminded me of John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles after Steve Martin gets picked up by his balls. I've never seen a man picked up by his testicles.
Before.
I just love the idea that you verbal they say, show don't tell, but sometimes it's funnier to tell.
Yeah.
And that's a good instance of that. Like, I don't actually want to see Dreyfuss choking on a goldfish, but I like the idea of, I like it being told to me afterwards, recounted as a story to me afterwards. I think that's even funnier.
There's a part of me that feels like I don't give much thought to, our
Suicide?
commentary or or what I'm going to say. But I remember thinking, like, earlier in the day today, I remember thinking, there's a part of me that hopes that Mr. Wass does not listen to this because it's not going to go well for him.
I mean, it's very unlikely.
Yes, of course.
And I to be, with the greatest respect, I don't think it's anything he's not heard before.
Maybe not.
About the movie.
Well, that 6-deal picture plan didn't go through, that's for sure.
Crazy. I mean, even more so than I think that Lazenby was signed on for the same number of movies as well.
Oh, is that right?
And he's no Lazenby.
You love Lazenby so much.
No, I mean, but he's not even Lazenby, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Let me ask you something right off the bat.
Yes.
All of the movies in the back half of the series, they don't have a "the" at the beginning of the titles.
Yeah, I know. I had to keep double checking that I wasn't missing a "the."
What's the deal with that?
So the Pink Panther shot in the dark.
But the Pink Panther strikes again.
Inspector Clouse-No. The Pink Panther strikes again, and then the return of the Pink Panther.
Yeah.
Which you missed again. So it starts. Actually, it's a back half problem. It starts.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Well, there you go. Well, obviously, you need a "the" in your title to be a successful comedy movie. Although maybe that was.
It's been decided.
Maybe that was a studio note that you can't have more than one "the."
Let's separate it from the other sequels. No "thes."
Yeah, or that it's unwieldy to have two "thes," which nominally I agree with. Maybe they put more effort into thinking about the title than they did the films themselves.
Well, the title is Curse of the Pink Panther. It's a 1983 film, yet again directed by Blake Edwards. We've already talked about that fucking guy in all his movies.
Yeah.
This movie, 29% on Rotten Tomatoes.
29?
Yeah.
that sounds like more than trailer the Pink Panther got.
Yeah, I think that one was 23.
So it got 6% added on for being a real movie.
Maybe. That must be that.
It's an automatic 6% increase for being an actual movie.
23, I was right.
Yeah, there you go. Good stat memory.
Well, it had a budget of $11 million, an opening weekend of 1.6, and in the USA and the world, 4.4. No wonder there was a big break before they let him do another one.
It's a risky proposition. I mean, this happens again and again in franchises where they feel like they have to strike while the iron's hot, and release, whenever there's a. I mean, Trail wasn't successful, so I don't know what the impetus is. Just that they had it in the can, I guess.
Well, as we said, they were shooting the movies together, so
yeah, it was in the can, so
yeah.
Unfortunately, that can was the trash can. But Halloween did it, and I was watching a documentary about Child's Play. They did the same thing. They kind of tried to strike while the iron's hot and tried to release a sequel in under a year. Never works. But I mean, there's a logic to those decisions because they were following movies that were incredibly successful. I don't quite know what the logic is here.
Yeah, right.
Commercially, artistically, or humanely, morally.
Yeah, right.
And I guess it is just they learned the wrong lessons from Trailer Pink Panther. Like, well, the footage exists, so let's release a movie.
Let's just
based upon that footage.
Yeah. Oh fuck!
It's like it's like Ed Wood's dream of making a movie entirely out of stock footage.
Yeah, right.
Nobody knows what it is, but it's scaring all the buffalo. Anyway.
This movie starts again with the MGM logo. Did you notice that it says United Artists, but there wasn't a logo? That's my note.
Oh, it just says United Artists?
Yeah, it wasn't the dun 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 with a turning.
Yeah, I think it's very wobbly as well, so I assume that means it's contemporaneous. That hasn't been retrofitted. My note is when I saw that, I said I have a horrible feeling this is as satisfying as the movie's going to get for me with seeing that wobbly United Artists logo. And, well, I was partially wrong.
You're wrong about that.
But not completely.
There's one part you really are gonna have liked.
Yes, well,
I don't know why I'm being cagey. We already talked about it.
Yeah, and it's about an hour and 40 minutes away, so...
Yeah, it's in an hour, 54-minute movie. That's the real crime.
But I tell you what I don't need to see again.
The entire crime again?
Or, that establishing shot of the mosque.
Yeah, the Lugash prayer.
You know what? The establishing shot has done its job. The mosque is established.
I'm just going to assume it's in Lugash. But this was, of course, part of the part of the schism in my brain because I thought for sure I put the wrong movie on.
Yeah, I did too.
I hit my button. It says "Curse of the Pink Panther," and I thought, "Oh, they got something wrong." Where they put Trail of the Pink Panther onto the Curse of the Pink Panther title.
I think I tried to keep track. This is the third time we've seen that shot.
At least, maybe
at
4.
This point. No, we'll see one more before the end of the movie. We'll see it again before the end of the movie.
It's not in the original and Shot in the Dark.
No. I think it was shot for Return.
Or, okay.
Because it's not technical enough for those movies.
Yeah.
So it's third generation copy of the original establishing shot by this point. Having the same opening to two movies in succession is almost as bad as making a movie completely out of outtakes.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why these two movies are completely indistinguishable from each other.
They are forever linked in how nonsensical they are.
They're just different kinds of sins.
Yeah, right. Now, I need you to go over to this confessional and say this. And I need you to go to that confessional, and I need you to confess this. It's the same thing, but from a different... Just get forgiveness, please.
I have the image of like a DMV style attendant at a Catholic church sort of going, venal to the right, original to the left. Venal to the right, original to the left. Yeah, so, and then next up we so we get just I think we should, for the audience's sake, say this because this doesn't normally happen in films. The opening to this movie is exactly the same as the previous movie up to a point.
Correct. It adds, though, because you get Lumley back as a different character, which is also part of my schizophrenia and causing me damage to my poor fucking head. So I go through a thing where I think to myself, oh, so she's back. Wait, she seems to be a different person. Wait, is she disguising herself as a person? Wait, she just shot a guy.
She's stealing the Pink Panther diamond from the person who stole it.
Yeah.
And then we get Zombie Peter
and is
Sellers.
in love with Clouse-No.
So we get Zombie Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
So that there's a general refusal to move on from the past demonstrated here.
Right.
Both in terms of what you did in the last movie and what you've done in the series. Because at the very least, if they had any modicum of taste and decency, they wouldn't have you wouldn't have Clouse-No with his face blacked out. You wouldn't show him on screen.
Is this our earliest instance of, all the shit we're complaining about now with de-aging and adding faces of dead people by use of CGI? And is this our first? Right? This is our earliest example of it?
Except they can't put, they've got nothing to put in the hole.
No, yeah, exactly. Except Shadow.
It just has to remain. It just has to remain Shadow.
Somehow, I actually find that more satisfying than a CGI face, though.
Sure, yeah,
because it's real.
Yeah,
I know there's a real person underneath that shadow.
Well, you also know that there's no pretense of trying to make it look like anything other than a silhouette.
Yeah.
And you know the reason why, and the problem with CGI avatars is they think they're working in the field of illusion when in fact they're just reanimating the dead, or the old, I guess, because some of them aren't dead yet.
Yeah, right. They're just infirmed.
And I mean, this is reanimating the dead, but I guess the only note of decency is that they haven't recast the role. They've left it dormant. They left him he's basically the Invisible Man at this point.
Yeah, right.
So, because they're not it's sort of like they're not. I don't know where this is coming from, whether it's Blake Edwards or the writers or the producers, but there's a refusal to acknowledge that there's some things we can't do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Both in choosing to recast Joanna Lumley and in not recasting Peter Sellers but having Clouse-No in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so early to keep the character, but after your actor is dead. And I just remember thinking, I mean, that's so early for Hollywood. It's such an early example for Hollywood to decide, Damn the torpedoes. Don't give a fuck. We got money to make.
Yeah.
And,
well, I think
to not even consider just coming up with a different idea.
It goes back to Ed Wood again, the guy standing in for Bela Lugosi with the cloak over his face.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's the kind of B-movie approach
right.
to it. But this is a big budget movie, so it shouldn't be kind of stooping to those depths. And it's got, I don't know, does it have a sense of camp about it? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah.
Not enough camp, anyway, to carry it.
My next note is that they're not quite in as big a hurry to get to the cartoon, because they've added this scene with Clouse-No dropping his bullets and she pointing her gun at him. But as always, we do got to get to that cartoon. But it was weird because the cartoon itself, my biggest overall note for the cartoon was that I noticed that it seemed to be a cartoon sans Clouse-No, but then out of nowhere, his leg appears. Just his leg.
Yeah. Well,
and then I thought, oh, so he's going to start appearing now, but he doesn't for the whole rest of the cartoon.
Yeah,
it's like they don't even know what to do with the cartoon.
Well, the visual emphasis of the title sequence is kind of disembodied Clouse-No parts, which, it's not only reanimating the dead on screen, it's kind of trying to tie that into a sort of literal zombie metaphor. Because when the title comes up, it's like they have the mummy font basically.
Oh wow, yeah.
For Curse of the Pink Panther, so they're almost they're sort of playing with imagery of people coming back from the dead, which to call it tasteless would be to say the least. Sellers barely in his grave. They're also, and that's consistent throughout the movie. I think that they are at once kind of referring to the the sort of desecration of Peter Sellers' memory and body, whilst at the same time taking advantage of it. Like it works both ways. And this is where I think this is the first variation on the title theme that I really haven't enjoyed. The synth-heavy version of the Pink Panther, which is very 1983, but just not doesn't mesh with the original music that well, I would say.
But I can't say how much I noticed.
It sounds like the Pink Panther theme played on a stylophone. That's what it sounds like to me.
But I couldn't even, for the last episode that we just put out for the ranking episode, I couldn't, maybe I'll try to find it again for Revenge, but the different little opening credit song, that altered theme, I couldn't find a good recording of it. It would include like the shots in the face from the guns and shit like that. And it would sound tempered and low and staticky. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I had to put the regular one in.
Funny how nobody's bothered to re-record it over the years.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the last movie we had Pac-Man. In this movie we've got supercomputers.
Mm-hmm. Because we're about to be Dave. Or not Dave, but Hal, essentially.
Hal, yes. Although he says, he calls...
he does say, Ready Dave.
Ready Dave, yeah. I never thought that they'd stoop so low to promote 7-Eleven in the animated titles. I think that's a low point for the series. I know the 80s is a mecca of product placement, but not even Moonraker stooped that low. Yeah, and it's the other thing, we talked about this in the ranking episode, is you just see names that are exactly the same cast as the previous film.
I know. But half of them are playing different people.
Half of them play different people, with some notable additions, including Robert Wagner.
Yeah.
They're going back to the well of kind of try to surround the movie with enough legacy characters to disguise
who's missing. Yeah.
What I've called Clouse-No. Anytime he appears, it's like, oh, look, there's Clouse-No.
It just felt like Blake Edwards had the mentality of, all right, fuck, we don't have Peter here. All hands on deck. If you've been in a Pink Panther
literally,
movie,
they're on a boat.
I need you in this fucking film.
Yeah.
I'll wedge you in there somewhere. Don't worry about it.
Mr. Chung, pack your bags.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's kind, because even before I'd seen the movie, I made the note that when you end the previous film with interviews with legacy characters, what you're suggesting there is it's a eulogy style wrap up to the Clouseau story. But what the cold open and the titles tell us is that this is the first of a two-parter. And in a way, it's the connections between these two movies are the most serial in the entire series.
Yeah.
The narrative connecting tissue between these two movies is nowhere else in the series.
Yeah. Because there's so many. I mean, this movie, right after that, right after the credit sequence, we have a news report about Clouseau missing, which is, something we've already seen in the last movie as well.
Right, yeah.
So there's some of that connective tissue right there. I mean, this movie's starting with that.
It's like Karate Kid 2. It's picking up seconds after the end of the previous movie.
Ooh, do you want to say anything else about Karate Kid 2?
Is this what you're trying to get me to say? Tea ceremonies?
Yes.
Oh, why are you trying to get me to talk about tea ceremonies?
I had an over-under of 1.5. I thought you'd say tea ceremonies at least twice. I'm gonna put out fucking Karate Kid movies of my top 5 because I don't need to see a tea ceremony.
Yeah, but that's one of the movies I regret being so hard on.
Good.
That and Jaws 2 and Psycho 2. On a nightly basis,
No, I think we both said we liked Psycho 2 quite a bit.
No.
Really?
No, yeah. And apparently, from everything I've heard since, I'm wrong about that, but...
Oh.
Certainly deserves a real
I liked it, didn't I?
Yeah, you did,
I remember liking it.
Yeah. You've always been more open to clunky sequels that should never have been made than I have.
Yeah.
It took me a while to warm up to those, and then I began to put them all in context, and then you see certain of those, and you go, Psycho 2 wasn't half bad at all compared to this. I found it interesting as well that the title animation was made by Marvel Comics.
Oh, I didn't even catch on to
that. I seem to remember that they bought, that they released Pink Panther comics under the Marvel label.
Okay. So,
is this the first ever Marvel movie?
They're not going to advertise it.
I was going to say, I'm surprised that the company haven't found a way to make a PCU.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose Kevin Feige and his, after...
A PPCU.
Yeah, PPCU. After the Marvels came out, he was just like, yeah, fuck it, Pink Panther, expanded universe, whatever. Also, another thing that you see a lot in the back half of this series is related screenwriters. So we have Blake and Jeffrey Edwards, who, in a preemptive credit check. So, first of all, I love it when people who work on the crew are related.
Yes, you do.
It also means the Edwards family have nowhere to hide in this game of blame sardines.
Mm-hmm. It's
Two
you.
Edwards.
It's you.
Also, they steal a joke from Superman 3. I don't know if you noticed, with the Pink Panther looking at the photograph in the photo booth.
Oh.
The Pink Panther, he takes a photo in the photo booth and then he pulls it, and it's lots of him fighting with Clouseau in it, just like Superman changing from Clark Kent.
Does he rip it too and give one to a kid?
Oh, I mean, that wouldn't make any sense, but in this context, but it feels like Blake Edwards and Richard Lester are cut from the same cloth, comedically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so after we get it, we get into the story. We're continuing the story of Clouse-No's disappearance.
I'll say.
Following first time the series have been serialized since Strikes Again, and possibly the most it's been serialized ever.
Do both these movies, does Trail and Curse, once we get to Dreyfus talking to his psychiatrist, do both movies also include? Because I have a memory in my head that both movies are essentially him saying, "Can you believe they're asking me to do this?"
Yes.
Okay.
I suspect are just alternate takes of the same scene.
Yeah, I'm not crazy. Okay.
No.
I mean, I am, but not about that.
Your eye is ticking, though. You're going to watch that. That's apparently the sign. But it's kind of funny how they... let's say funny. It's not in a comedic sense. But it's odd how they... how computers have become part of the storyline, too.
Yeah. I imagine, because this has got to be is War Games 83 as well?
Oh, interesting. Well, just going back to Superman 3, just the idea that...
Yeah, right.
That, in the early age of computers, people who made movies thought computers could do literally anything.
Mm-hmm.
Same with robots, really, in the 80s. They were like, fucking robots can do anything. And, what Seiko can do in Rocky 4, robots can barely do now.
Yeah.
And the same here. This is like full-on AI,
mm-hmm.
right? But it's 1983, and it's a computer that takes up the space of a warehouse. And it just feels like like all computers, supercomputers in early 80s movies feel like redundant attempts to modernize the content.
Right. I thought it was weird too that the HAL 9000-esque computer, in the attempt of a joke, is trying to say how crazy Dreyfus has been in previous movies, but all he's doing is pointing out flaws in the scripts of them not explaining to us how this man still has a job.
Well, it does get very meta here because they have a conversation about who should we pick to investigate the disappearance of Clouse-No, and someone says, why not a she?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're having the recasting debate that comes with any major franchise character changing actors on screen, right? This is exactly what happens when there's a new James Bond or new Doctor Who. It's like, should we switch genders? Should we make them a person of color? So it's very metatextual, but not in a particularly interesting way. It feels like another way of treading water. If having a computer storyline is not in and of itself a way to tread water, the metatextuality is too.
When that part came up, there was a part of me that thought to myself that the misogynistic kind of tendencies of Blake Edwards and Peter Sellers in these movies, maybe this was an attempt to reconcile that a little bit, to just bring it up.
Well, I think that's what he's trying to do with Leslie Ash later on in the movie, but he can't help himself from making women sex objects even when they're at their most badass.
Right.
He just can't help himself, really. And then we start doing like a check-in with all the characters that were interviewed in the second half of the last film.
Yeah, right.
And what was the interview for? That was the check-in. Why are we doing another check-in? You don't need to check in if you just checked in. That sounds like a line from Seinfeld. You don't need to do the check-in after you've done the check-in.
Just saying.
What is the thing in Seinfeld? The drop-in?
Yeah. Or the pop-in?
Pop-in, that's it. Yeah, the pop-in.
Yeah.
Not fond of the pop-in. He's George. He likes the pop-in. Big popper-in. And I guess we're back in Cato's brothel soon after that.
Oh, are we? My next note is we go to Clifton Sleigh.
Oh, well, in our check-ins, we see Kato has refitted the brothel. Well, I don't know if he ever had a chance to take down the brothel.
Yeah, right.
I guess it's just been there the whole time because Clouse-No hasn't been home since he did that.
I was more focused on how fun it was to see Joe Morton in an early role.
Oh, I totally forgot it was Joe Morton. Yeah, absolutely. And I just watched Speed. I just watched Speed this weekend as well, and he's kind of playing the same character. I just watched
Speed.
Well, it just came on Max.
And
it's kind of playing the same character he plays in Speed.
Yeah, right.
But just before we leave the wonderful computer scene.
Yes.
Which deserves more discussion.
Does it?
They challenge the They can challenge the computer to sing Moon River backwards, and I just thought that's a total Blake Edwards political coup move. They're trying to identify the series with his past movies rather than Peter Sellers' past movies.
Oh, and narratively, we could say Dreyfus has decided to program the computer in a certain way to get the world's worst detective to try and find Clouse-No because he doesn't want anybody finding Clouse-No.
Yeah, world's worst actor as well.
One Clifton Slay.
Yeah. And you brought up the idea of the Americanization of the series, and this is where it
goes full tilt boogie for America.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's even an archetype of the American police drama of the time. Undercover cops cross-dressing as
it feels a little Hill Street Blues, right?
There's multiple Hill Street Blues episodes where it happens. So they really are trying to shift the cliches to the American policier,
right,
over the kind of French. The French tradition, or the French-British tradition. And, again, plays into all the problems of transgender identification in a range of Blake Edwards movies. Yeah. He would have had a place in the Trump cabinet, I feel, had he lived. He would have been one of our special envoys to Hollywood, along with Jon Voight and Sylvester Stallone. And who was the other one he named? Was it Zachary Levy, or...
I know that he's a weirdo on that level.
He voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Because, and for an even worse reason than liking Trump, in that he was an RFK supporter. So he said, well, now he's out of the race, there's only one way for me to go.
Fuck's sake.
Worm in his brain.
Worm in the brain. There is one joke in this entire scene that I liked. And even though it has to do with transgender, Slay's costume, one tit is hanging lower than the other.
Yeah.
But I guess what I like the most about it, nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
It's just there for you to see if you notice it.
Yeah. They probably didn't tell Ted Wuss that it was happening because he'd probably go blub, 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 like that to make a point of it. His comic instincts are so off. He'd probably go, look, I got one tit lower than the other. Yeah, we see.
He tries to put one in his mouth.
But didn't... in the middle of this set piece, we have a rich drunk picking up a prostitute. I thought, are they leeching off the popularity of and part parodying the success of Arthur, which came out?
That's what I thought. Before. That was exactly what I thought. It felt very Arthur to me.
Like a kind of Airplane style movie parody kind of moment.
Except it's not.
No.
That's
all right, an Airplane 2 style movie parody. Let's. I tell you what, it doesn't help Ted Wuss and Clifton Slay that he begins in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't actually have a baseline of who Clifton Slay
is. Yeah.
But even in disguise, he seems completely unremarkable. From moment one.
Sorry, Ted.
No, I mean... I love how you're worried that Ted Wass is listening, crying into his bourbon.
Yeah.
Just a solitary Denzel tear falling down his face.
It's fucking harsh. But you're right. I mean, there's just no two ways
I
about
mean,
it.
I'm not. I'm not being unduly critical.
Yeah.
But there's always Robert Loggia.
Yeah, I was just saying, or looking at my notes. It's so odd because he's playing a different character now from the movie.
I didn't even notice that.
He was just in.
I just assumed, honestly, you know what I did in my head canon? And this is better than the version in the movie. That Duvier got knocked off in the car chase, which I don't remember whether that happened or not.
Uh-huh.
But he didn't survive the car chase, and he just moved up. He just took over the organization.
He took over.
Why couldn't that be? What is preventing them from doing that? No, he has to be a completely different person with a totally different name.
Yep. But I also felt, because once Loggia's introduced, I don't know why I feel like this, but it just felt tenuous that the mob felt exactly about Clifton Slay as they did about Clouse-No.
It's the same assassination gags warmed over with a surrogate detective.
Right.
Old wine in new bottles. And I think this is when Clifton Slay goes to the airport. I think the movie thinks is we're going to show you a masterclass of physical comedy here, with the sped up umbrella mime bit, which is a classic of a physical silent movie comedy. But this, it's like, it's okay. The basics of physical comedy are fine, but this feels like a beginner's class, not like someone with a grasp of the fundamentals. It's like someone attempting it for the first time.
He didn't go to my mime class from college.
No, this is his mime class, and we all have to just sit and watch.
Yeah.
We have to, we're there from day one. This is the kid who started playing the violin. Yeah, it's and they try and cover it with metatextuality by going, oh, how can history repeat itself? Because Dreyfus is getting all annoyed and slapsticked out of the window by Clifton Slay. And they say, history's repeating itself.
This tripping bastard.
Yeah. And so they're they're trying to give themselves deniability for repeating jokes by kind of acknowledging that they're doing that. And this is sort of the first time they've got that desperate, I think. I think whenever they've referred to the deja vu effect, it's always been kind of incidental.
Yeah, there's that.
Or part of another joke. This is like they're literally turning to the camera and saying, "We've got nothing left in the tank."
Yeah, exactly.
This is what we do now, and like it or lump it.
Clifton Slay is just a bumbler in this movie. It's a wholly different joke, and not much of a joke that he walks into Dreyfus's office, trips, and pushes him out a window, as opposed to Peter Sellers walking out the door and realizing he has a point to say, saying, "And another thing," and puts his hand through a plate glass window in a pompous manner. You're like missing a piece in the Clifton Slay joke.
Well, Peter Sellers' comedy is like death by paper cuts. There's like a million tiny jokes all working together with each other to create this wonderful whole, but it literally as simple as he walks through the door and someone falls out of a window.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you were parodying it, it would pretty much be that. It would be the same thing. He turns the doorknob and someone flies out of a window with no physical contact between them.
All right, this movie's bothering me already. I need a break, so let's...
I wanted to mention
hot and
before
bothered
our first break. I
in a
wanted
non-good
to
way.
mention that it's very rare that you have to redo an introduction,
Yeah.
but you did it for this one. And two things about that: one, you couldn't have picked a more perfect episode because this is this movie is already a redo of Trail of the Pink Panther. And the second thing was, it's kind of like for the in the first draft of the introduction, you sounded so depressed when you said hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast, and you really brought it up by the second one. So I think part of your brain acknowledged that you sighed your way through the intro and needed to do it, and made your brain forget what you were going to say so you could do it again.
That sounds right.
Yeah. It was so bleak the way you started it.
Ooh.
You know, like the way that Maya Quimby says, "My wife." It was like that.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We'll be right back. Sadly.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here trying to talk about Curse of the Pink Panther, the 1983 film directed by Blake Edwards. I guess only out of habit.
That's all from us, everyone. That was the Everything Sequel podcast. Ain't gonna get better than that. That's like a line from the Blake Edward, the Comedy Central roast of Blake Edwards.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that wasn't a compliment. That's the reason we have Trump as president right now. No, I'm kidding. No, it was beautiful. Good job.
Thank you.
And it was nice to laugh because we're about to talk about, I think, one of the most depressing aspects of any of these movies, which is the Clouse-No Museum.
Yes, that's right where I am.
Which is, I think, them trying to offset the sweatiness of what they're doing with a sort of meta joke at their own expense. Which, I don't know, it kind of makes it worse that they know that what they're doing is kind of cinematic taxidermy.
Yeah, right.
I kind of don't like knowing that they know they're doing that, because I always like the plausible deniability that they might just not have thought it through. But clearly they have thought it through, and they're making a joke about it.
And poor Was, he has no idea how to make this fight with Kato the least bit funny.
You know what the worst part of this sequence is? And this is a bold statement,
Ted
obviously.
Was.
You're killing it! Mike's here all week, everyone. On fire. Can't get one past you. the worst part of it is I spend the whole time watching this sequence going, I wish Peter Sellers had been alive for this.
Yeah, right.
To do this with Kato. And the one that really gets me is the mirror joke.
Yeah, me too.
That would have graced any of the Kato Clouse-No fights. That idea. I can't believe they haven't done it before, actually, when I see it.
Yeah, right. Because it with Clouse-No and with Peter Sellers, that's a fucking great joke that he would move about this area and discount a human being looking at him.
Yeah.
By saying to himself, it's a reflection in a mirror.
Yeah. So that's it. It's what do they say? Melancholy. It's kind of tainted.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the second movie in a row we've seen Kato attack a surrogate investigator, who is following the trail of the Pink Panther of Clouse-No's disappearance. So this really is a should be one or the other kind of a moment. I need one of these scenes, not two.
Yeah, why is this called Curse of the Pink Panther? It should be Trail of the Pink Panther 2.
The Revenge of the Pink Panther. Starring Ken Wall.
That's got to be a Conan joke.
No, it could be a backdoor Conan joke because it's The Simpsons.
That's what I meant. I meant.
Oh, like written by Conan. It's a bit late,
yeah.
I think, unfortunately, but
oh, okay.
It's a great one. Yeah. I also thought the other day, like, it would be, Return of the Pink Panther Return starring Kevin Federline for some reason. Because why not?
That's an inspired choice.
And yeah, this is unusually serialized once again because we're going back to Dr. August Bowles' Bill Demands.
Yes.
Which is continuing a story thread from the previous movie. These movies are meant to be seen as a couplet. This is like Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. I don't know.
Is this... Well,
Rocky 1
sorry,
and 2?
I was...
No, I didn't have any more examples. You jumped at just the right time.
Okay. I felt bad because I was moving on.
No, don't feel bad. You're.
Is this the movie where Dr. August Bowles is constantly wanting his $5,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's still Harvey Korman.
And he's still Harvey Korman, yes.
Liz Smith is still Mrs. Bowles.
Harvey Korman seems to be getting less funny in the role.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're sort of raking over the last movie.
I mean, my note is that scene is painfully long.
Yes.
I kept writing down, man, you could have cut half. Like there are at least 3 to 4 to 5 scenes that you could have cut minutes off of each scene, like 5 to 7 minutes off each scene.
Yeah.
And then you have a Pink Panther movie as opposed to whatever this is.
And then you have a movie that's not an hour and 50 plus minutes.
You know what I don't need? A Pink Panther opus.
Yeah. Popus. Well, it's kind of like Back to the Future 2 levels reenactment, isn't it? Where you're kind of walking through the first movie again. Not well, in that context, walking in the last movie again.
Yeah.
Because he's just going around interviewing the same people again about the same thing.
I know.
So, and then
because he ends up in Lugash.
Well, they dress it. Well, he goes to Bowles' store. He gets Clouse-No's last disguise that he was never able to wear.
That he was never able to use.
Sad.
Right.
So he's a surrogate Clouse-No, and they're literally dressing him in a dead man's clothes.
Terrible.
Yeah. What do you think about well, I think I probably know already, but what do you think about the repartee between him and between Slay and Dreyfus? It's a different kind of comedy, isn't it? It's like culture clash,
Yeah.
language barrier comedy, not mispronunciation and anger.
I'm
at
not even
buffoonery.
considering that quite as much as I'm considering it just feels like Herbert Loam is doing all the heavy lifting.
Very much so.
Like trying so hard to bring comedy into the scene and
Yeah.
trying to give us the warm and fuzzies of the feelings we had when he'd be in a room with Clouse-No.
Yeah, he's like the ventriloquist in Ted Was is the Dummy. Except he can't even get like a decent voice out of the dummy.
Right.
Yeah, so they're back in Lugash. We see the well-established mosque establishing shot.
As always.
And the
Forever present.
and then I would say a highlight of this, or maybe any movie, Joanna Lumley's mud boobs.
Mm-hmm.
She's so classy, she even managed to find an elegant solution to partial female nudity. She's like, I'll get out of the mud bath. You'll see the outlines of my tits in mud. I'll get in the shower and then we'll cut away. I mean, that's just class, isn't it? And you know she came up with that. She came up with that workaround. That's not a Blake Edwards workaround.
No, yes, absolutely not.
He would have wanted full bare-breasted goodness, and she talked him down to mud boobs.
Goodness. Goodness.
Yeah.
You make it sound like cookies and tits. Today we're gonna have cookies and tits.
That was Beck's best album, Cookies and Tits. And it has all of this kind of this sort of reheated interview sequence nonsense.
Because it's one right after the other. He
Yeah.
goes to the scene of the crime. He has Hawkins, he has the same taxi driver,
Yes.
and then goes to see Lytton. But most of that's wasted on the blow-up duck comedy.
Oh wow, there's like two different there's two different inflatable comic devices in this movie. There's the duck and then the woman later on.
Yeah.
I hadn't even clocked that. They're back-to-back inflatables.
Yeah, and they're close. Yeah, exactly. They are back-to-back.
Well, I suppose we should talk about Robert Wagner returning as the Lytton nephew, which is another be careful what you wish for moment, because we get a legacy character that we haven't seen since the very first movie in the series, but he's come back very much as a sideshow. A sideshow to the sideshow. Because Capuchin and David Niven are already the sideshow, and he's the sideshow to the sideshow. And it's interesting because there's a lot of, there's more consistency between these movies than there is in any other part of the series. But there's still some pretty heavy retconning as well. Because the Lyttons reveal that Clouse-No has been to see them, which is not what they said when they were interviewed in the last movie. And
right.
It's one thing that it's completely different from what was said before, but also, shouldn't there be more emotional weight to Clouse-No reuniting with his ex-wife for presumably the first time since she cuckolded him?
Yeah, since she left him. Yeah.
So, that's odd, and I guess they're just doing it for the purposes of this plot, so to speak.
Yeah, I suppose my overall, my actual note is that there's lots of physical comedy going on, but it's not exactly fluid.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But what is fluid?
That's just what it feels like.
What is fluid
What's
is
that?
What is fluid, as it always is in Blake Edwards movies, is the car chase.
Yeah, like good directing of action once again. This is pretty impressive, I thought.
Great action directing and editing, a lot of great stunt work.
Yeah.
Wasted on this nothing set piece.
Right. And again, a car chase that goes on for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still interested enough because he's shooting in a way that's interesting and that kind of thing, but it all amounts to nothing.
Right. It's got to come from
since
somewhere.
they just park the car and hop over a fence.
Well, the reason that the greatest car chases of all time are as such is because they're important turning points in the storyline, like French Connection or Bullet or Ronin.
Ronin.
Well, there you go. Yeah. You know.
And there's and then Hootkins, who's is desperately. It feels like the entire scene is improvised, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was one of my other notes, where it felt like he was just given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted, but it wasn't landing.
No,
nothing to me is landing.
Like Porkins himself, he didn't land. R.I.P. It's kind of like Smoke versus Blue in the Face. You've got like the scripted version of it, and then the sequel, which is all improvised.
Poor Porkins.
Mm-hmm. Graham Stark recast again as a waiter.
Yes, right.
So they're trying to keep some of the traditions of the series, despite the turbulence of not having a lead actor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really good that those supporting artists in the restaurant are sitting in the background laughing, so we know what's supposed to be funny.
I noticed the same thing.
Because they're not reacting to whatever's happening. They've just been
giving us clues.
Yeah, it's like
the comedy of the film.
It's like a laugh track, right? A necessary laugh track. And the human temp track. Yeah, and there's so he goes into the hotel with the blow-up doll.
Right.
By the way, and I know you're a fan of Lars and the Real Girl, but I would say, I think that's the exception that proves the rule. Man with blow-up doll comedy is the lowest form of sex comedy out there for me.
Yeah, but Lars and the Real Girl, I just rewatched that.
Yeah,
movie.
no, that's a real.
That's a different thing.
I know that's the exception that proves the rule, but otherwise, it is when you see a blow-up doll in a movie, it's the lowest common denominator sex comedy you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of there was like so many bad sex comedy movies made in Britain in like the 80s and 90s, and every VHS cover was like a naked guy on a beach being with his modesty covered by a blow-up doll. Like, again and again, you would see that cover, and you'd know exactly what that movie was. Staggered, starring Martin Clunes. That's the one I think that's the key one I'm thinking of. So, and this is equally unfunny.
What about Airplane?
Again, well, there's two exceptions that prove the rule. I wouldn't say that's a blow-up doll. It's an automatic pilot.
True.
Two automatic pilots.
But they are both blow-up dolls.
Oh.
Is it the first one or the second one where she kind of goes down on him and he winks?
First one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Leslie Nielsen comes in and quickly goes out again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, he goes into the hotel and they have like a mashup joke in the elevator of two different past gags. So when his blow-up doll deflates, it's the fart in the elevator and the deflating parrot.
Oh, okay.
Mashed up into one, into baby food.
Mm-hmm.
And then an early appearance by Bill Nye, not Bill Nye the Science Guy, but the British actor. He's in the is it in a hospital or no police station? I think he's a guy in the police station.
Police station?
Or maybe the hotel.
Is this before the doll? They shoot the doll and it blows up the hotel?
I think directly after.
Okay.
It's difficult to tell because I've skipped whole scenes in my notes. Because they're absolutely worthless. But I just thought that's interesting that Bill Nye's there, because I think he would have made a better Clouse-No surrogate than Ted was.
All right, yeah.
And I remember reading an interview with him where he said he as a young man, he was a hobo in France.
Oh.
Like he learned panhandler French and went out onto the streets of Paris begging.
Okay.
When he was a struggling writer. He's an interesting guy. If you get a chance to like listen to an interview with him, he's got an interesting take on things. He talks about being like trying to be a writer and getting as far as drawing a margin on a piece of paper. That was as far as he ever got into writing. He also does the audiobook for Moonraker, so
you like that?
And he's interviewed afterwards, and he talks about how Ian Fleming is a better writer than most people think he is. Anyway,
all right.
Mr. Chong.
Yes.
Starting to lose the grip on what constitutes a fan favorite in this series. It's really now a case of anyone who will come back constitutes a fan favorite.
God, where?
Yeah, it's really hard to find.
Oh yeah, there he goes. So that's part of the big fight. He's found. What's her name? Julia.
Who's Julia?
I don't know. Well, wait, is that the?
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, Mr. Chong attacks them in. Well, we see Mr. Chong first. He's called in by Robert Loggia, and
Loggia.
I have to say it like Jiminy Glick. Robert Loggia.
You gotta drink your OJ.
Although I think of him in Lost Highway as well, where he's punching a
Julietta.
Oh,
you know Leslie Ash.
Yeah, I think of
yeah.
But I'm talking about Robert Loggia in Lost Highway. He's
all right. I'm sorry.
No, we don't need to go down that avenue. He's punching a guy in the face, telling him traffic statistics. Which apparently the character was based on David Lynch, because David Lynch gets violently angry about what do you call it? Tailgating on the roads. Like apparently he's got serious road rage.
Stomp on the brakes. Let you ram into the back of him.
Yeah, I think so. If I saw David...
Have you ever seen a movie called Necessary Roughness?
No, it sounds familiar, though.
College football, Scott Bakula.
Oh, no.
Hector Elizondo.
I didn't know
but
it was any of those
Loggia is the assistant coach, and he's got to take over in the last big game. And he has this great speech where he's like, what the fuck? I hate this tie. I don't want to be this. I want to be who I am, and I want you to be who you are. I want you to fucking kill these guys. I want you to rip off their heads and shit down their necks. Let us pray.
He's also great in the season of Sopranos. He and Buscemi, I think, are in season 5. And there's also that episode of Frasier where he's a restaurateur who scares Niles into vomiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, those are some good Robert Loggia performances, and then there's this.
I don't know why. I know I mentioned this in the ranking episode, but I really liked Leslie Ash's performance. Like, she was the most interesting actor, maybe just because she was somebody new.
Until we get to Roger Moore. Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Until we get to, she'll have to do until we get to Roger Moore. Well, first of all, because where are we in the world? We're in Spain?
Are we?
Seville?
I don't know. Was that clear?
We're in Spain.
Wait, that's where... Yeah, maybe, because that's where Niven sends them, right?
Yeah, maybe not Seville, but we're in Spain.
And they have a local festival disguising the lack of content in the movie, that is a lesson they definitely learned from late 70s and early 80s James Bond movies.
Right.
Local festival covers a multitude of non-narrative sins.
All the way to Spectre.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Spectre starts with that.
Yeah.
That's the whole cold open. And, it's weird that we're starting to kind of fabricate a love interest with 30 minutes left in a movie that should technically be over already.
But it's not, because this fucking fight scene is 15 minutes long.
Oh, man. Yeah. But it's also
It's forever.
And it's back in the era where anyone physically powerful can be taken down by a swift kick in the nuts, and they're just never seen again. They're out of the fight as soon as they get kicked in the nuts. And I'm not
done and done.
And I'm not nostalgic for that. There always has to be an emotional reason why people lose fights now in media, and I just like the idea that just kick him in the nuts and
just a nut kick.
That's how a David beats a Goliath. He kicks him in the nuts, and we move on. I bet they do it in Mortal Kombat all the time.
Mortal Kombat.
I look like it's so funny. Those of you who are subscribed to our Patreon, Mike put together a fantastic pastiche of the Mortal Kombat titles. And it's so funny when we do the and you hear the real thing. It bears no resemblance. We sound like horse aliens, and then compared to what that is. Yeah. It's also, speaking of Spectre, it's a shame that, and I often am, it's a shame that they didn't have the rights to Spectre in the 80s for the Bond films, because Herbert Lom would have been a great Blofeld.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Based on this movie.
That would have been great.
I can't believe he wasn't not Blofeld in the cold open of For Your Eyes Only. The only way that could have been made better if that was Herbert Lom in that wheelchair. Being thrown into that chimney.
Back-to-back Bond references.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get a timestamp on that last one, but and 7 minutes.
I think you need to give your timestamp a rest when we're talking about the Pink Panther movies, because it's going to come up a lot. And that's not my fault this time.
True. Yeah, but still.
So, and then briefly Robert Wagner becomes Slay's sidekick.
Around for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like this idea. I like the idea that he plays a bigger part than just being interviewed, but it's a bitter pill to swallow that he's not reuniting with Clouse-No.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing it with Clifton Slay. Slay spelt like sleigh bells.
I guess there was some within the story of Leslie Ash, because in my head I knew what the movie was doing. I knew that she was setting up Slay for something.
Yeah.
But there was something within it, and I didn't know if it was her performance or Blake Edwards or the combination of the two, that was really making me doubt myself. I thought she actually was falling for this guy enough to make me doubt that the movie was where it does eventually go. That I figured it would go early on, but
if they'd have
they're together for a long enough period where I thought, I don't know, what do they actually like each other? What's going on here?
But if they'd have just started this an hour earlier, you could have built.
You're right. Yeah.
You could have done. You
something
could have done
with
the
it.
arc
Yeah.
where she's initially sent to destroy him and then falls in love with him, and then
falls in love.
But you can't do that with.
They could have met Roger Moore together instead of separately.
You can't do that with 30 minutes to go when the fight sequence has already taken 15 of those 30 minutes. Yeah. The one thing I did like seeing, and the one vindication of bringing back the trio of Charles and George and Simone.
Mm-hmm.
Was that they continue the kind of pissing contest between the two guys about cat
the two fellas.
So it was really...
And the cuffs, getting the cuffs off, timing each other.
So I liked that, and I but then it then it was ruined, because I started to envision a movie where we just had the cast of the Pink Panther and/or Shot in the Dark trying to find the Pink Panther diamond sans Clouse-No, and I thought, well, that's a better movie.
Yeah, right.
Than either of these movies that they made. And we don't need Ted Wuss, and we don't even need Zombie Clouse-No.
Mm-hmm.
David Niven, I guess David Niven would have been too frail to carry it, but, Graham Stark could have carried it.
Well, you could have put somebody into his role and played him, because there They're not shy about that.
Yeah, I could have brought Christopher Plummer back. I wonder if they ever thought of that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to have to get your timestamp out again, because there's plastic surgery and mud pits.
Because Roger Moore's going to
Well, even before that, I was making notes about Bond before I knew Roger Moore was in this movie, because they've got mud pits and plastic surgery, which is basically the cold open of Diamonds Are Forever in a nutshell. I wonder if that's a specific reference, because that's very niche. That's a very niche combination of imagery that only applies to the cold open of Diamonds Are Forever.
And they bring that back, right? Not that I should keep going down Bond roads, but which Pierce Brosnan movie is it? Is it Tomorrow Never Dies, where the main bad guy turns from an Asian to a buff white blonde man?
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day.
One of the better 21st century Bond films. I'm only partially joking, everyone. That's got a great first 20 minutes.
Where he's captured?
Yeah, well, plastic surgery is kind of weaves its way through the series. It's in Thunderball. It's in at some point between Thunderball and On Her Majesty's Secret Service. He's turned from at some point from between You Only Live Twice and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he's gone from Blofeld turned from Donald Pleasance to Telly Savalas. And he cut off his earlobes so he could pretend to be royalty. First of all, I was born without earlobes. Who loves you, baby? But yeah, so I was making notes about Bond films before Roger Moore popped up, which, as I said in the ranking episode, I had no idea was going to happen, and was really something.
Yeah, I wish I was in the room, man, when you saw that. That would have been great.
But it was there was the immediate reaction, and then there was a good few minutes of he's witty and charismatic enough in his own right to pull this off.
Yeah,
and then, even with Moore's genius, the novelty wears thin after a few minutes. And I even wrote here, I said, I suspect this ruse goes on much longer. And it did.
You mean by the time he gets an ice bucket on his head?
Well, I mean, it goes all the way through to him discovering that the diamond's been stolen as well. And
yeah.
So... there's a great, actually the only good Ted Was joke in the movie is in this scene.
I can't bring it to memory.
He says, now we're at the Comedy Central roast of Ted Was. Oh my God. He really would be crying into his bourbon if it was you and me doing the Comedy Central roast. Ted Was has been described as a human temp track. Yeah, when he turns to Roger Moore and says, "Could I have you?" No, so he turns to Inspector Clouseau, who has the face of Roger Moore, and they think it's Roger Moore. Let's just get that clear. Just have to clarify that because it's not self-evident.
Right.
And he says, "Could I have your autograph? It's for my grandfather."
Mm-hmm.
Which is more referencing to the aging of Roger Moore than you get in any of the Bond films.
I like that added twist to it, that Roger Moore exists in the world, and they made his face to look like Roger Moore. That's funny.
It's great. The whole bit is excellent.
He's more Cannonball Run Roger Moore. Not that you would know.
No, not yet. I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to watch Cannonball Run.
Oh, I want
to see how that orangutan learned how to drive that car.
Good luck.
Are we gonna see his driving lessons?
No.
It's a four-way intersection. What's wrong with you? Anyway. So we get also we didn't mention, but we don't need to mention that they've gone back and forth several times on Dreyfuss's characterization, even within the course of this movie. Because
he tries to murder again. He's got the bazooka.
He's got a bazooka.
So he goes back and forth between supervillain and responsible policeman a few times in the course of the movie. And then in the final
his broken
scene,
leg and his wheelchair falling off a cliff.
Yeah. Well, and he effectively becomes Clouseau in the final scene with the fire and the injuries, and you can see the globe in his office.
Oh, well, and I also... Because doesn't Kevin Kline's Dreyfus break his leg and fall out windows as well?
Yes, definitely.
And so they're drafting off this movie out of all the movies for that?
Is it the first time it's happened in the series?
I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise me.
So weird.
They also wrap his head in bandages so he can turn into John Cleese.
Yeah.
But they don't have the scene where he...
But, like I said, I saw this movie in the movie theater, and those are the only memories I took away from it, was Dreyfus falling out of windows and off cliffs.
It's a good bit. It's just... it's the difference between... I think it's the difference between comic actors who do basic comedy because they don't need to show off.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the actors who can't do anything but basic comedy. And that's the difference between a Laurel and Hardy and Kevin King of Queens.
Hart?
Paul Mark.
Oh, Kevin James.
Kevin James.
Yeah.
Who's actually quite a good physical comedian. I don't know why I decided to pick on him. You seen the episode of King of Queens where he does a stripper routine?
I haven't seen any episode of King of Queens.
It's got Daddy Costanza in it. Jerry.
All right.
I can't remember anyone's names. Jerry. What's Jerry?
Jerry, yeah.
Not Seinfeld. Stiller.
Jerry Stiller.
I remember Seinfeld. It's good. It's better than you think it might be.
In all of Del Boca Vista.
Exactly. And you get to see Lou Ferrigno is a recurring character playing himself.
All right.
I don't know why I'm advertising the King of Queens to you. and in turn the listener.
I prefer Lou Ferrigno in I Love You, Man.
Well, it's the same. It's the same shtick.
Yeah.
And also, what was I going to say? You also get to see. Oh yeah. Oh, this would be a classic anecdote if I can remember anyone's names. What's the name of Leah Remini?
Yeah.
You get to you watch each episode, and you think, where is she in her relationship?
You mean like pre and post?
Well, that's
Scientology?
It. Well, you watch each episode and go, I wonder what she thinks about Scientology right now.
Yeah.
Because she tells stories about, like, literally they kidnapped her from the set and said, no.
That's crazy.
There would be, like, she'd work, like, a 14-hour day filming the show, and then at the end, Scientologists would pick her up afterwards and say, no, you got to do your work for us to pay off your debt for us for the evening. You got to get on the phones and try and convince your celebrity friends to become Scientologists.
Fucking fuck.
Until you go to bed. I tell you, it's the slave traders.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bed now, so I can make no phone calls. Sorry. That's what she should have said.
Yeah, I somehow think that they would
not an acceptable answer.
They'd end up like she'd end up like Mrs. Miscavige. Yeah, so we get like a cyclical sort of reset ending.
Yeah, with what is it? He's Rossi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of welcome. It's a you want some closure, but you don't need a 2-hour movie to do it. So
you certainly don't.
That's my final word on the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my final word is, well, they go back to office fires again. So again, we're seeing jokes repeated over and over and over throughout the back half of this series. But it's funny that they try to give you the sort of nostalgia feeling of the Littons all like cheering to another heist.
Right.
You know, like remember the fun hijinks that we used to have at the beginning of this series with these lovely people?
Yeah.
Goodbye.
And here's Blossom's dad paragliding.
Well, I guess that's it. So, credit check?
Yeah. Well, Roger Moore keeps being funny in the credits because he's legally not allowed to appear in this movie. So they have to give him a pseudonym, and they choose Turk Thrust 3, which is apparently the name of one of the residents of the nudist camp in A Shot in the Dark. The credit for one of the nudist camp attendees in Shot in the Dark, so they gave it to Roger Moore.
I like that.
He couldn't use his own name for obvious reasons.
That I know. Yeah.
Emma Walton, Angry Hooker, which was a lesser-known gender swap spin-off of T.J. Hooker made for subscription cable.
Nice.
We all remember Emma Walton, Angry Hooker. And then there's a credit here. I'd never heard this term before. Parascenders. Which I didn't know was the correct terminology for paragliders. Parascenders.
Oh.
The people I've offended over the years by calling them paragliders. I had a lot of phone calls to make, I can tell you.
I might have called them parasailers.
I think I would have said
parasail.
Parasails, paraglider, everything but parascenders.
Yeah, no.
Morons.
Isn't that a space movie?
Who would be Parascenders?
Well, isn't that a space
Ender's
movie
Game?
with Jennifer Lawrence and what's his name for the Lost World? No, that's Passengers. Never mind.
I was thinking of Ender's Game.
That's Harrison Ford, right?
If you do a crossover, Ender's Game and Passengers, you'll end up with Parascenders.
Ooh, how much fucking pointing do you think there's going on in Ender's Game with Harrison Ford?
Yeah, because being in a cramped space makes him point more.
Yeah,
you know what happened?
Interrogation rooms.
I was not feeling great this weekend, and I watched The Fugitive again. I won't apologize for this. And you know what?
I watched it 2 or 3 months ago.
Because I had misgivings about watching it again, and about 2-3 minutes in, those misgivings faded.
They
fast.
go away. They yeah.
Because I was like, no, there's things I've not seen before that I'm noticing. It's okay.
There you go.
I can't remember what they are now, so I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah, I have to check it out.
And then finally, home video games starring the Pink Panther are now available in stores everywhere.
Ooh.
The beginning of the Convergence era. 83.
Yeah, that's a little gross. It's a Reagan thing.
Yep. Exactly. Media. Look.
Yeah.
What? You're on fire today. You're halt and catch fire today. Yeah, absolutely. But also, that's like the last thing you see before the credits end. So it's kind of interesting that the next movie was in the 90s, where that convergence has kind of already taken. It's completely fully formed by that point.
Right.
So interesting.
All right. That it?
That is it. Yeah.
We went ahead and made this a 2-segment show.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we
That's
finished
even less than
hour and 54 minutes in 2 45-minute sessions.
Okay. Well, sorry. I guess which of our sponsors is losing out?
Yeah, who's to say?
We should probably omit our our own ad for ourselves.
Yeah. I realized this morning I forgot to put the ad at the end of the ranking episode.
Oh.
People won't notice.
Well, it is 2 hours long, so...
It is a long fucking episode.
And yet our
episodes
on the actual movies have been shorter than we ever do.
I know.
I think we used up all our best material on that.
Maybe.
Just because we were so desperate to make sure we'd both seen the same things. I didn't dream this, right?
It's up in the air there.
I think I might have fallen asleep and dreamt the whole movie.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all that's left is for you to tell us what you think of Curse of the Pink Panther. As always, you must know what to do by now. Do the things. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, the other thing, or send a thread, or go to Blueski, or send that email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. All right. When you hear us next, we'll be talking Son of the Pink Panther, a movie somehow that got to the second spot in both our lists.
Yes.
When you listen to us talk about it, you're going to start wondering why.
Indeed.
But we have reasons, and we just gave you the reasons with these last 2 episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. We will be back. Say goodbye, Tom.
Oh my god, I sound like Stan Laurel. I think this is wishful thinking on everyone's part.
Wishful, yeah.
Especially Ted Was.
You do not.
Yeah. It's not a full-throated attempt to align Clifton Slay with the great traditions of movie comedy in the same way they do with Benigni in the next movie.
Yeah, right.
And they put far more effort into trying to fit him into the history of film comedy than it's just basically just this line and the umbrella. And that's it.
Yeah, right. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back.
Back. Well, I'll let you go and poop in peace. Or in pieces, I suppose.